the thing that keeps him on his path is realizing that he just imagines that one day he gets to heaven and God introduces him to the person that he could have been, right?
Wow.
So it's just like, hey, you made all these choices, you did this, you stayed, not to say this is a bad thing, but you stayed where you're at. You had a choice to do this, and this is the life that you could have had, blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to introduce you to the person that you could have been. Like, think about that. That's terrifying, right? That's terrifying to think about.
Yeah, so let's get it started. Paul, we've known you for how long?
You want to do a prayer first? Let's do a prayer first. That way we don't. Thank you, Father, for bringing us together. Thank you for your mercy and your grace and the amazing love you have given us, Lord. We bask in it, your blood that you've given us and the sacrifice, so we can live in this beautiful world that is so filled with so many of your gifts. We thank you for those people out there helping the people in the hurricanes and the aftermath, feeding them, giving them a place to stay. Bless those people that are putting aside their time to go help them, and we pray that things will continue to go in a good direction for them. And we pray for good opportunities for your word to be shared in the midst of that. Thank you for this day today, and we pray for the conversation to be guided by you, and we'll glorify you with our actions and our words and our thoughts. Thank you so much, Lord, in your awesome name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Well, welcome. We have Paul here, one of our specialist guests. Joe and I have known Paul since we were like 12 years old, and we also share an awesome love for music. I have so much respect for Paul because I'm a musician. I've never made any money on it. Paul actually makes a living playing music, which is no easy task.
Some sacrifices had to be made, definitely.
That's why you're a warrior, man.
Right.
For music.
You just got to play stuff you don't want to play all the time. And no, I'm kidding.
No, and you do well at it. I mean, you were riding over here listening to some oldies and hang on loosely. What's the song we were listening to?
Brandy.
38 Special, right?
Yeah.
Oh, the second song was Brandy. Yeah,
Brandy. Oh, yeah.
The first song was 38 Special.
Yeah, it's a great one. Which, by the way, is like Leonard Skinner, one of the dudes, went off and did that supergroup. Great songs. But then Paul chimes in and starts singing better than the dude on the... I'm like, yeah, keep singing, bro.
Oh, no. I have to wet my whistle after hearing that one.
You better. You're going to hear some a cappella on this one. You're going to put on the pressure. You're going to have to impress everybody with that beautiful voice.
Yeah,
lay it on me.
But yeah, so I met Joe and John when I was 2000. It must have been 2000 or 2001.
Yeah,
I'm thinking.
Yeah, right around there.
Because we had a mutual friend, pastor's kid, played in
Lukey boy.
Luke Wright. Yeah, he was the bass player. His dad, remember, he had the old Wolf Camera storage unit that they turned into like a gospel, gospel church essentially. Yep. I think he could fit like maybe 25 people in there comfortably, but yeah, I mean, his parents worked full time and then ran a church on the side. So, but yeah, that's where we met, and then had a lot of fun in between.
Yeah, because we were best friends with Luke when we moved down, and then you were best friends with Luke in school, and then we all kind of met through Luke. And then we became really good friends.
Luke would always go out because Luke was in jazz band. He'd be like, "Dude, I know the best drummer in the world." And Joe and I would be like, "Nah, he's not as good as David," because we had our drummer and he was always really good. And there's this sort of like contention there. I was like, is he really that good? And then Paul comes over. I remember it's one of the first times we got to meet you, and Luke had this little Matchbox plywood room that his parents built for him in the garage of the house, and he walks in with his sticks and he's like spinning them, and he takes a pillow out and he's got these little sticks. So Joe and I are immediately not metal, tiny sticks.
This guy's not metal.
Yeah,
enough.
What are those sticks, man? He pulls them out and just starts doing paradiddles at like Mach speed on a pillow, and Joe and I are like, okay, yeah, this guy's insane.
Zero rebound.
Yeah.
All wrist.
Yeah,
all technique. It's incredible.
Yeah.
And he plays guitar and he sings, obviously, and he writes music and he does covers. And just a very well-rounded musician.
He does video
promotions.
He does a lot of management too.
Yep. So we actually Paul was one of the first Iron Disciples.
Mm-hmm.
We would start off at the kitchen table with some coffees on Saturday morning, and we'd hang out. And he has a very different spiritual beliefs than we do. We all kind of have different beliefs in many different areas, but we always keep up when we talk about dating or, like how life is going, different mindsets, different mind frames, and what to utilize in life when it gets tough or when you're in your highs and your lows. Being a musician, you have a lot of very strong emotions. That's generally kind of comes along with very creative people. They're very high dopamine. So that kind of works for and against these types of people when they go through breakups or, they have successes or they have failures. And they tend to kind of internalize these things differently than a lot of other people do. More sensitive and have more of an introspective approach. And that's why we get so much good music from our musicians, and those insights, they end up becoming songs, and we all listen to them, and we're like, wow, that's exactly how I feel. So Paul's very special for that, and we'd love to have him on today and kind of talk about some of these ways that you see things you've experienced over this last year. I know we've talked about dating and sort of how that feels, with the dating apps, with how women kind of with how women approach you when you're playing live versus how they approach you on like a social media. Very different for someone like you. Like we were talking the other night, it's like you have more luck dating at your shows. They approach you and they say, "Oh, you look a lot better than you do on your Instagram."
That's actually
Right?
Somebody said that recently, and I think we're bred to have conversations like this, right? I think I was mentioning this yesterday. So there's so many social cues that we pick up all the time. Text conversations, that's 1/10 of the energy or the perspective that you're getting from somebody. I've had like internet dates where you first get on like a Zoom call, and as soon as the Zoom call starts, you're like,
crazy.
This is not the energy that I had in my head whatsoever. You know what I mean? So you're like, so we have like, I just see like women and men running around and kind of using it as an attention thing. Like, so if I'm not, I'll be honest, like if I wasn't getting the attention on the streets, so to speak, I would go to the app and then start swiping, and it'd make me feel like I was actually out getting like somewhere.
Proper attention.
Right. Yeah. And then it would just kind of blanket some of those things where it's just like, okay, well, now I feel like I've done something.
It's weird. Nailed it with the communication thing, though, because I saw, I don't remember who said it, but he labeled communication between humans in like a pie chart, and there's kind of different aspects. So like body language was like a percentage, and tone was a percentage, and like the actual words themselves was like 10 to 15%.
Very small.
And that's what we're doing with texting. We're taking out all of the other part of human interaction, communication, and just taking like that 10%.
Yeah. Right. Well, it's just like, man, this podcast is great. Or, man, this podcast is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what is like really being said.
Totally different experience.
Yeah.
Totally, dude.
So that's one of the things that I noticed too. But man, what was the first thing that you brought up?
We're talking about the difference in dating.
How you get approached, like live in like for instance, like one of your shows, and they see Paul up on stage playing, they see him talking, they see him in real life, versus like how someone sees you on social media. They check out your Instagram, maybe you reach out to somebody, and then they're like, oh wait, like these two people are so different. You know what I mean? Yeah, and they say, oh, well,
I feel like a lot of it has to do with what Mike said. Like you're getting a real version versus like 10% of the pie chart,
right?
And it's just unfortunate. Like a lot of times, I can imagine on the opposite side, if I was to like go see somebody sing and not in a relationship, you feel like they're on like this pedestal almost, So you get to like look at them while they're doing what they're doing, and it's very intimate for everybody who's watching you. So you're like under this microscope, and they feel like they know you. That happens to stars all the time. People who've watched all their movies, like they think they know that Joe Rogan talked about. It's like, it's kind of a weird thing, and you deal with that all the time. And so they're like, oh, this person sang this song, I know this song, and there's like this weird sort of relationship that starts without you having to do much than your job, singing these songs. What's that like?
Well, I think, well, in contrast to like the dating world and actually knowing who somebody is, I'd like to. I feel like I talk around 30 or 35% of my performances, and one of the reasons is the places that I play, they're not ticketed. So people are there. They're there to enjoy some musician. They don't know who it is. Sometimes they'll just walk in and be like, "Oh, I know that there's live music here." So, in a way, I really don't get that. Like, "Oh, I'm following this person. I don't know. I haven't talked to him and whatnot." But when they come to the shows, I can communicate with them, and sometimes I go into like more of the comedic approach where I call people out for doing certain things.
Like entertainment kind of.
I've heard people have gotten really upset at me. Actually, one of the gigs, one of the things that I do is I'll ask people what they want to hear, and if I don't know the song, then or if I don't feel like playing it, I will say through the microphone, "No, I'm not playing that."
Yeah,
and some people love it, but
I hate that song.
But yeah, it's for me, it's more like the comedic approach. But that gives me an ability to show more sides of just like, oh, he's the guy that, like for instance, like you play like a love ballad, and I think people, if they only know that about you, then they're going to be like, oh, this guy's like so romantic.
For sure.
Like, oh my God, John Mayer, like he has these, like he's just so sexy. And like, how do you know that he's not can I say a D-bag or whatever? I don't know what I'm supposed to say.
It's okay.
But,
say what you want. It's okay.
But yeah, so
if it's horrible, we'll edit it out.
But yeah, there's that. But back to like the original thing.
Yeah, just basically the different ways that interaction feels. So like when you're up there on the pedestal, some girl looks at you, she, might like John Mayer, and she looks at you, and then you get this sort of weird reciprocal thing going on.
I think that happens on the dating apps too, because like the people are projecting whatever they want you to see. It's their best angles, filters. It's whatever they want you to see of them, and it's not who they really are. Like you were just saying, getting on the Zoom call or whatever, and you're like, wow, this is not what I was expecting, and I think that's like, I've seen the opposite play out too, like where I've been out at like a club or something, and then like they'll ask for your Instagram, like, oh, you only have 1,000 followers, like I thought you should have like, and they lose interest,
right?
Because
which is a turn on for me if a girl has less than 1,000 followers.
Absolutely.
And
Wonderful.
Instagram's private. I'm like, okay,
and it's a turn on for me if someone actually like cares about that much. It's like, oh, that's gross, because it's not an authentic version of themselves, and obviously they're really caught up in whatever that Instagram, social media projection of who they are.
Status is attractive.
It is
for women,
right? It is. It is attractive, but that's not. It's a facade. It's a persona. It's something that you can develop through pictures and through.
So I'm interested to know the difference between those interactions. Like you meet some girl at a coffee shop, or you set up a date, versus some of the attractive girls that come to you when you're playing. How do you deal with those two different things?
Well, so like I said, I try to emote as much of me as I can through my set. So if there is an attraction there, then I'll entertain it, like off the stage, and then what I'm really what I really like is when artists come out, or if there's like a girl that I'm interested in that I know is an artist. I feel like we already have the barriers kind of like dropped in a way, so I really appreciate that. But sometimes I guess there's people assume or have more attraction just because I'm on stage
like
or playing in front of people. And it might be kind of like the whole value sense of things where it's just like, oh, he's on stage is important. Oh, and the girl next to me is looking at him, so I'm going to be interested now
for sure.
And I thought about this actually. Side note, status is a huge thing, right? Supposedly for women, and I guess some people agree with that. But my caution to women in general is if you're going after a guy that other girls want, it's either they're actually high value, whatever that means, quote unquote, or they're putting all their time, and a significant percentage of their time, and I hate to use this term, but spinning plates, trying to find a bunch of different women so that they can attract the top one that they actually want. And I can say that because I've done that before. And I've actually seen a lot of men do that kind of stuff too. It's just like, you really don't have a lot going on, but you're texting 15 people throughout the day. I was like, how do you get anything done?
How do you?
By the time you get to know that person, whether it's a girl or a guy, it's like, wow, you really use up 20 or 30% of your day, if not more, spinning plates.
You're never going to get to know anyone with that much meat on your plate, man.
That's what I'm saying. So caution to women, if you're just trying to seek men who are being sought by a lot of women, it's either one of the two. Not everybody can be the top 10%.
True.
Don't count on loyalty either.
Yeah, don't.
Yeah.
Write that one off.
Right.
So where are you at with dating now?
Single. Actually happily single.
Good,
right
dude.
now.
That's a good place to be, man.
Yeah, and I'm in a position where I'm not chasing, and honestly, it gets to a point where actually I've gotten off all the dating apps. Yesterday, I deleted my last my
good for you.
my one that I was on. So it was just nice. It was nice because
now why'd you do it?
Well, I was talking to Mike, and he talked me into it.
Okay.
And that's what no, I got off of it because it's like, put it this way, I'd match with women, and then I noticed we'd have a good conversation. There was a fall off, like it was just like non-existent, and then I started to think, it's like, wow, out of every average girl and average guy, the average girl probably gets 10 times as many DMs.
Oh yeah,
and like they can't even go through all the DMs. We were talking about that yesterday.
Yeah.
Mike, did you guys already talk about that on the podcast?
it's okay.
A long time
Talk
ago.
about it all you want, man. We broach subjects.
Yeah, well,
and
I
rebroach
think
them.
because shout out to Courtney Ryan. She did a video on like the reality of dating apps for men, and it's basically like, don't even try, because the numbers are skewed. Number one, there's more
unless
men.
you're really good looking.
Tinder has its stats on like if you're basically like, if you're not in the top 5% of men on there, you're pretty much fighting for like 80%, or like the rest of the men are fighting for like a tiny little portion of the women.
Yeah.
So you're just wasting your time. In
So
other words, and
basically-
you're just making yourself frustrated.
You're right.
Right.
Which
Okay.
is what I hear a lot of. That's why a lot of guys just get off it, because it's very frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
And they end up making them feel like worse than they did before.
Yeah.
It's like they're better off without it. You know, I feel like we've talked about this. Another subject that comes up quite often. It's like, what is sex for women? Attention, what it is for men. You know, so in other words, men are very sort of tactile with that. They want to touch, feel, have an engagement. Whereas women, if there's a lot of attention flowing their way, they could maybe do without that. It's not as important. It's not taking first place. They don't need the tactile engagement of sex, or, you know, the important thing for them is being desired in a profound way.
And I'm guessing this is just like kind of like the average, because obviously there's outliers.
Oh, of course.
everywhere.
We can only talk generally. You know, I'm no professional on any of these points, but I do know that from an indication of looking at, like, you know, Instagram and things of that nature. So what ends up happening is, I guess a girl might have interest in you today, then some other guy comes along, and it's just sort of this, you know,
It's like another 10
cycle,
guys
you know,
come
or-
along
yeah.
on the app.
right, but they find one to talk to out
Yeah.
of 10 guys, right? So they're always picking one guy, and it's just sort of something that keeps them feeling desired, and that desire works into their, you know, identity and sense of well-being, their self-esteem, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's true for us too, but we're
Right.
just not as, you know, I think women from being young, they're taught to be pretty. They're taught that the way that they're social valuing them has a lot to do with that.
It's beauty.
But yeah, so I can see how getting rid of those things kind of liberating, and say, hey man, this stuff's not doing anything for me anyway. Just get it out of here.
Yeah.
You know.
But yeah, to rope all of what we're talking about into one, it's like, you know, when you're performing, that's, I guess, you know, it shows your expertise, especially if you're like performing music. You're doing something that most of the world can't do.
Absolutely.
You know, and you're getting paid for it.
You are in that 5% aisle.
I maybe
For sure.
But yeah, and then outside of that I just realized, yeah, like we're talking about, it's just a very unfair. It's not even an advantage for women. I don't even think. You know what I mean? It's like you're.
I agree with you.
You're. I mean, all the guys that are interested in you, again, they only see 1/10 of who you are. So if they're interested,
Maybe they like that.
Maybe.
But I think what Paul is saying is not doing them any good at the end of the day, regardless if they like it or not.
Yeah. And you know, I think it's a perspective too. Like, say, like for me, I'm running a booking agency. I'm a performer. I have a show tonight, for instance. And I'm involved with a philanthropy group we're a marketing agency that's putting together a marketing team to be able to market for NGOs at an industry level. The ones that can't afford it, they would come to us. We would actually.
What are NGOs?
Nonprofit, not for profit. Cool. So essentially, if these NGOs don't have enough capital, then we can hire a grant writer to come in and be able to activate the process, be able to bring money in. So I'm doing all these different things, right? So when you look at how much you're trolling or chasing on the internet, you could be on Instagram DMs, it could be on any of that kind of stuff. You got to think about how much time you're actually putting into this. Like, is it really worth it? Is that more important than the things that you're trying to build? Like John and Joe, you guys have been building a metal band for a long time. Is that under wraps?
No, you can say
okay.
It's okay.
Okay. But it's great. I mean, just looking around your studio, you have custom work on your guitars that you care a lot about. I mean, you can tell everything you do, you care a lot about. You put a lot of time into it. So the thing is, it's like, if you're looking like going to meet somebody, I say the internet's probably one of the worst places to do that. If you're not an aesthetically pleasing guy that has, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm like a 10, but I wouldn't say I'm like a 4 or 5, you know, but I'm pretty, you know, I think you really have to weigh those options as a man or a woman.
You're definitely
like,
up there.
I agree.
And it's like
I wanted to point one thing out though, like it's what you said in the beginning was happily alone, right? Or being a happy bachelor or something
happily
like that.
Single.
Happily single.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like when you can focus on yourself like that, focus on a dream you have, something that's going to be essential to who you are. It's going to give you that confidence you may be getting or wishing you're getting from a relationship. So you don't feel like you're going without that just because you don't have that woman or that wife or that thing that's going to complete you. But you do have this work you're doing, you know, like, and it's not just any kind of work. It's not just like, I need to make a lot of money at this job I hate, so I'm going to kill myself doing this because I just want a lot of money. It's like more than that. It's like you're passionate about something, and it's like you're offering to the world. And I see a lot of that in you, you know, because that's what's made you a successful musician is you weren't just a very good musician and singer. And we know that that's the issue with musicians is you can be super talented, but if you can't get into the right circles, you don't know how to market yourself. You don't know what you're doing on the business end. And you've worn all those different hats as you've made a career for yourself and become a known name in this place. And so you have that thing that gives you that confidence that a woman, you know, typically for a man, you know, and I think it's a good reminder to people in case they're having bad luck on the dating sites and stuff like that. Is like, you know, focus on something that you can be really passionate about and you'd be surprised. I mean, I know when I was a bachelor for a long time, music was that, you know, for me, dreaming about it, thinking about it, trying to share it with people. That was a good feeling of confidence that it gave me. So I wasn't feeling like I was in a vacuum, you know, like I didn't have any.
Yeah. And it's funny that you mentioned that because I thought about that today. So like for booking in business, they always talk about a why. Have you heard of that? Like, why do you do the things that you do? And it's really, really important to keep that in your crosshairs. One of the reasons is, like you said, it's like I'm into the music business because I love it. I think that it's changed lives all around the world, and you can still use it to do the same thing. And hence why, you know, you have people in pop music that are constantly putting out messages, whether you know it or not, subconsciously, to move the populace in one way or the other. But
that's heavy, dude. That's like this conversation we were just having about like Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
And what's that song Doja Cat just released? Not to give her any more press like she needed.
Dang it, yeah.
Oh my
Dang
God.
it, why are you doing this? But it's
it's like some of that stuff, dude. And this is another conversation. I don't know if you be ready to switch subjects here. Or do you want?
No. Well, I was gonna say.
Save it.
Shoot, where was I? What was I talking about? Before?
Basically, talking about that why factor. In business.
Okay. So, I have friends that do the 9-to-5 stuff, and they're completely happy with it. You know, but I think for me, running my own band and then running my own side businesses as well, at first I felt called to do it. I felt called to do it because I was like, I want to do this stuff. I want to diversify. I just don't want to be an artist. I want to make shirts. I have a clothing line too called Empower Merch.
Yep, check it out, guys.
And EMPWR merch.com.
We'll put it in the description.
Yeah. And it's my why for that was to be able to inspire people to live a life of passions, whatever that may be. Whatever that may be. I have a shirt that says "Keep Dreaming" that I designed myself. Another one's "Think Outside the Box" line that I created, and
love that stuff, dude.
When you're going through and designing for hours, when you're going through and managing a website and setting up all like the platforms to be able to sell, I need to have a why. Like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And the why was to be an inspiration, if I could, in the world, and on top, like, be able to make some passive income so I can diversify my music career. And I think that question of waking up every day and saying, why am I doing this, is a very important thing. And if you connect that with like, oh, this is the reason why. This is the reason why I'm doing this. You start to see what you're really passionate about. So, and I've been in and out of that my entire life. Like, I think for a lot of artists, you come to that point in your professional career, you're like, why am I doing this?
Oh yeah.
Why am I taking this brunt? Why am I staying up all night to do this? Why?
So much sacrifice.
So, but then those questions get answered. Try walking away from your craft for a year and see what happens.
You're
going to learn a lot,
Good point.
And it's like another topic that I want to talk about is going in and out of addictions in my life and realizing what it's like to be on the other side of the fence. It's the same thing. It's the same thing with art, where it's like, if you have things that you're doing for work that you're passionate about, and when those questions come up of why, you get reminded, oh yeah, this is why. And you see artists take breaks all the time. They're probably thinking, especially in pop culture, like they take breaks for like a year at a time. They're like, I don't want to do this. But then you see them getting back in the limelight because they probably have that realization where it's like, wow, I actually enjoy doing this. It's like the whole utopian principle. I don't know if you ever heard this before, but psychologists believe that if we lived in a utopia where we got what we wanted all the time, what would actually happen is that human beings would create destruction.
That's actually Notes from Underground, Dostoevsky.
Yeah.
He wrote about that. Yeah.
So
they would crave chaos.
And it's true. There's also a Twilight Zone episode. I was just reading about this the other day, so I don't know if you've seen this.
Dude,
so
that guy cracks me up, man.
So this guy, he gets picked up, and he's in this like alternative universe where he always wins. He gets picked up in a limousine. There's beautiful women in the limousine. He goes to the casino. He wins blackjack every single time. 2 weeks later, his host that hosts him around the world, or hosts around this world, is like, hey, why are you so sad? What's going on? He's like, I'm tired of this. Like, I just keep on winning. Is this what heaven's supposed to be like? And he said, who told you this is heaven? And I was like, dang,
that's potent.
That sent some chills down my spine. So but yeah, back to like really being able to have those points in my life where I'm doing what I love to do and then taking breaks, then coming back. I
get burned out.
Yeah,
We've all been there too. Yeah,
it's amazing. Like that's my calling. And in fact,
brother.
I remember like before I took the band on tour, I was just like trying to put everything together. I was booking, I was managing, I was writing all the music, handling all the pay. All the gear was mine, the PA system, everything. So I had to run maintenance on all that. And I'm sitting on like in a park, and I'm like just put my head down. I'm like, God, man, this is really difficult. Why am I doing this to myself? Like, why? Like, I felt called to do this. Why am I here?
The only reason why I'm laughing is because I know what you're saying. Bro.
Yeah. I look over, and there's this guy on a John Deere tractor, like 10 feet up in the air, just like loving life, right? And he's got the old yellow AM/FM like radio headset with a big antenna coming up, and he's just smiling, just riding his tractor. And I'm just like, God, why can't I just do that?
That's why you're a musician, Paul, because you see that and you let it correct you, man.
Right.
You got that sensitivity in you.
But and I was just like, I was taken back by that. I was like, why am I actually doing this? You know what I mean? So I think it's really important to have those valleys. I think it's really important. Like if you feel, even if you're living in your passions all the time and you have that sense, it's like, dude, go get a side job. Work for somebody else for a little bit. See how it feels. You probably won't like it. Or even better, you'll find out that you do, and you can drop that stuff. Like not everybody is meant to be a business owner. And I thought that about myself for a while. And then I started seeing success in certain things like networking and the type of environment or the people that would come into my life, and I'd be like, wow, like these are serious entrepreneurs, and
it's like you got to do something before you know it's for you or not.
Right.
You can't just think you'll react one way.
Right.
You got to do it.
Yeah. And it's tough to be your own boss because you have to you have to coordinate, you have to plan, you have to do all that boss work. And then you also have to do the work of just doing the work, the tasks at hand.
So they say working in the business and on the business.
Right. The planning part of it is it can be very taxing, especially when there's not like a defined objective. Like when you're working for someone, every day you have your objectives lined out for you.
I think if you turn your passion into your income, you can a lot of times ruin that passion too. It's a fine line, I think, to dance for a lot of people. Like
you see that a lot with. Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Well, just like I know it happens with sports people a lot. Like it becomes their whole entire life. Now something that was their passion is kind of ruined.
Yeah.
I've
seen that happened to me.
Jordan did he did an interview with that English guy who's on America's Got Talent. He's
Piers Morgan.
Thanks. You always got the names, Mike. But he's talking about entertainment and talent, and these up and comers. They're just gonna put it all on black, with this experience and see what happens, see how they get judged. And he was talking about people who rerun their past, whatever they were acknowledged for. They sort of stagnify in an identity that had success, and then they have to do the reruns. And I always thought, I was like, if I was the Beatles, I wouldn't care to play the White Album. Be fine with that. At that point in time, it's a job, and you care for your fans. But what he was really saying was they didn't have anything more to offer. People who sort of, and the dangers of when you get into the limelight, people not telling you the truth. So Pierce was talking about the posses that go along with these celebs, and a lot of them are just yes men, and so they're both sharing. Jordan was sharing his like real dudes, and so was Pierce, these real dudes that were in their corner that weren't just saying, hey, you're great, everything you say is great. They're like, no, you're actually full of crap, and you don't know what you're talking about on the subject, and you need to check yourself, otherwise that's not who you are, and you'll begin to turn more into what that is, and that's not who you are. I know who you are. And these like grounding figures within the posse, and how that's so important because you have a lot of attention, and if you get all that attention, it begins to screw up who you are, and then you're not going to be true to your first love, like you were saying, and then you don't have any good art to show up, and then you just start playing the reruns, and you're kind of like that. Maybe that NFL guy or somebody who can't transition out because his body's done, but he never found something else to be good at or another way he could fit into the sport, so it's incumbent upon us to continue, it's like you said about that what was it, a TV show where the guy's getting whatever he wants. It's like that's kind of where they are, and then they start to suck, and they actually want a challenge again, something real.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and some people would argue, for instance, like Tony Robbins would say, the true happiness comes from progression. That's where it comes from.
That's Adran, productivity.
Okay. So progression, and then passion, progression. So you can lose your passion. Like, why don't I feel the same way I did before when I walked on stage, or why don't I feel the same way here? And yeah, it's just you've lost that progression. You've lost the thirst to exceed where you're at before. I had this friend, Kelly. I probably shouldn't mention his name, but
I messed up with that so bad.
Hey, it is. But I'm not going to mention the really, really, really popular band that he played guitar for. But I remember 5 years ago, I was in the studio, and the sound engineer was like, hey, I have a good friend, Kelly, that's going to swing by. He played for da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, really? I was like, bring him in. So he's a diehard Christian now. And within 10, 15 minutes of meeting this guy, I was like, so what was it like to tour with this band? He was like, it was great, but, that's one of the reasons I turned to Christianity is because I completely lost myself. And within 15 minutes of knowing this guy, he still had the emotional baggage from it. And he was just started to bawl right then and there.
That's heavy, dude.
It was just
like what Joe's saying there. So we're so sensitive, musicians are, dude.
Right. And then I was sitting in the studio looking to be in his shoes and that kind of popularity and everything. And I'm like, this guy's crying because he lost himself trying to touch that light. And I think it's really, really easy to do, but having people that hold you accountable, I think is really, really important. I mean, I have best friends now that you'll even go to the gym with these people and you'll see a friend that has terrible technique on the bar, right? If you guys had terrible technique on the bar, don't you think that somebody in the group would be like, hey, man, no. Yeah. This guy was just like, whatever. And I was just, this is a
rotator cuffs,
right?
You're on your own,
right? And this is a person that, like, I've noticed this over and over again. He won't tell you what you're doing wrong. Everything's a party with this guy. Like,
it's the good vibes thing.
Good vibes. Or that's my mom says, the good time Charlie. That's as deep as this dude goes. Very intelligent guy, but. Like, I'm sitting there watching my friend lift.
See, he never grew up in a Latin household.
You hear all your mistakes, right? But yeah, and so I came from an Irish family, and I was raised around like Cubans and whatnot like that. So, I mean, anything good or bad, you were hearing about it.
Even the good stuff, you're hearing the bad stuff.
Oh yeah, Paul, you look so wonderful today.
Much
Did
better
you wear
than
deodorant?
Yeah, exactly.
No, it does not smell like that. It's okay. Come on in anyway. And you're like, love you, Cookie. Thank you.
It's a roller coaster.
But yeah, it's a real thing. It's a real thing to lose yourself. And again, going into you mentioned that I have some different beliefs. I don't think they're extremely different, but
I love them. I want to hear about them because it's like. You've been through so many of these things, and I'm not a cookie cutter Christian by any means, and it's tough for me to even relate to 90% of the Christians on a deeper level. But that's why I'm interested to see some of your beliefs. I
mean, we believe that you should be. A lot of the reason why cookie cutter Christians exist is because they don't.
Well, they're insulated
with each other about what they try to think. They try and say what they think is right.
And that comes from
they're trying not to get canceled in their own community.
Yeah, that comes from not leaving your own community. And doing what Paul said, like in 2 Corinthians, is like we talked about this last night, Mike, with that very intelligent young lady. Paul says, I became like them, and he goes through and he says, I became like the Greeks, I became like the Corinthians, I became like all these different people, so that I could love them pretty much. And what he means by that is like really like. Taking in their culture, their beliefs, and also like integrating some of that into yourself. Like when you become like them, it's not like I just saw them and made a documentary of them. It's like I actually lived with them, and like they had a lot of good things to give me. So my point is that God made everything, and even these places that you wouldn't think you can find him, he's there. And there's a lot of good things you can learn from a lot of these people. So that's why I'm interested to know about some of the diversity within your beliefs and where they come from and what they have to offer.
Right. And the important part about the Paul thing that people will get wrong.
Paul in the Bible, by the way.
Yeah.
Just want to let you know.
Yeah. He's a good writer, too.
he's but dude was put in jail and had the ability to leave jail, but stayed.
Love him.
And people think that he stayed to actually save the guard. When you look at it,
the guard was going to kill himself, right?
Yeah.
Right. So there you go. So continue.
All I was going to say is like a lot of people, after hearing what Joe had to say, they're going to be like, is that some weird, twisted version of progressive Christianity where you become, and where's the influence going? Is the influence coming your way?
It's going both ways.
But the point is,
it's going both ways. That's the point.
Yeah.
I'll try and make my point here.
Yeah.
So it is going both ways, but the influence is coming from the truth. So the truth is that Christ loves these people. So in order to be with them, it's not that if somebody's shooting up heroin, you go shoot up heroin to be like them. You go and understand what addiction is. You don't look down on them. You don't have this idea of superiority because you think you're better than them because you don't have that issue. So you become like them by understanding that addiction is serious. This person came from what? How did they get there? It's that work you put in. So it's not like you become like the world.
I think that's a very extreme example. I'm talking more or less like
for the audience, so we don't
for people that obviously don't shoot heroin, guys, and don't do that stuff. It's not good for your body, number one. But
it's one thing you can do without.
More of a cultural thing of like going and interfacing with like a different culture, different people with different beliefs, and different fundamental beliefs that they've had hundreds of years to create and time that they've spent investing in these things. That's more what I'm talking about, whether it's food or more cultural stuff.
I think it's the reason why God made us all different. I mean, like if I go and I meet an underground church in China you know, and the way that their humor is or the way that they are culturally speaking. Like, there's going to be so much of that. And it's going to be beautiful, and it's probably going to enrich my life, and I'm going to probably love it, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not going to sit there and be like, well, you know.
It's through example.
It's people being afraid of what they don't know, you know, and so they shut down in those circumstances. And so at any rate, that's the freedom that we as brothers are trying to exhibit and show others with this podcast, because we're all we're supposed to be the body of Christ. So we're supposed to learn how to speak about our differences, talk through them. If there's something that resembles confrontation, we work through it. You know, we don't shut down and go to our own little, you know, spot and be these little Smurf communities of beliefs. And that's not what we're supposed to do.
So you want me to talk about very untrivial things. Here we go.
Yeah, be you, bro.
No. Well, I'll give you a background. So I was born and raised Christian. That's where I started playing music. And personally, I favor Christian musicians. I have a solo project. I hire Christian musicians, and I hire secular musicians as well. The Christian musicians, what I've come to realize, I think I'll speak for me. I started in church. I started playing music in church, and I thought, looking back, I was trying to emote. I learned how to emote to make a certain energy, whether it was on guitar, with vocals, with drums, which was my first instrument, and I think the other half or most of the music world starts with theory. They start learning the books, they start learning where their fingers go, and they want to hit the right notes, but they're not concerned about feeling the right notes. With Christian musicians and gospel musicians, they go off feel. So when you're on stage with them, you can feel that transfer of energy constantly. With secular musicians, they're almost, in my mind, a lot of them are very boxy. They don't emote through their instrument. You can feel it. It's a totally kind of like black and white sort of energy for me. So I'm really glad that I had that. So, but when I got into high school, I started hanging out with more secular people. I was on drumline, in marching band, but this drumline in particular, I hate to say this, but there was a lot of party animals on this drum line. So I gained some choice habits, let's put it that way, starting there. And I started to back away from the church a little bit, but I was still going to youth group on Wednesdays because, you know, the regular congregation church, I just didn't really feel much connection there. It was a very like, here's the show, okay, here's music for 15 minutes. Here's a prayer at 15 minutes, 30 seconds. Here's this. And it's just very, very just boxy. This very like binary type feel, just rinse and repeat sort of thing. Youth group was really cool because we had all these kids with hormones going everywhere, and like we would have different things that we would do. We'd be able to hang out before, afterwards. We'd be able to do all this stuff. But then again, when I went to high school and later on after high school, I pretty much walked away from the church completely. Moved to New York City because I felt like I was a sheltered kid. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to move to New York City and I'm going to get my butt kicked, essentially. That's what I was asking for. And I certainly did. And I was like, wow, I'm in $1,000 of debt. My life's falling apart, you know? I thought it was hilarious, like looking back. So, but I learned, you know, how people communicate and not communicate in the secular world and all the other stuff.
Hardcore world.
It's a hardcore world out there. But yeah, so then I started playing in church again. But in between that, I found the power of manifestation and oh my gosh, what is it? Law of attraction.
So
The Secret. Actually, I watched that, and it actually did change me a little bit. And this was one of the things where at that point, I was like, God, take the wheel. Whatever you think is right, do it.
Surrender.
But then I was like, you know what? I want a little bit more control than that. And to be honest with you,
how can you manifest if
take
you don't
half
know
the
what
wheel?
you
Jesus, take half the wheel.
Yeah,
I'll deal with the brakes. And
and it's like the car crashes at the end. It's like you can see the comic book newspaper thing. It's just like God standing outside the car. He's like, dude, I told you to take half the wheel. And he's like, I thought you were driving. You know? And it brings me back to this whole point of like, you know, I believe that God gave us a brain and a heart and emotions, not to just override our systems and be able to control us, but those are our tools. It's like I pretty much firmly believe that, like, meditation, looking at where you want to go in the world and checking in with the source, which is Christ, God, is a great way to go, because you have like a foundation of where you want to go in life directed by God. But he's saying, I gave you the muscles, I gave you the brain, I gave you the heart, I gave you the tools, use them. That's how I see it. So, like, for instance, like getting outside the church and learning those Eastern principles of meditation and affirmations and the law of attraction and trying out these different things, they work. They work, and they've made me more consistent in my life. But, like, for instance, I started blending them with Christianity. So the first thing I do, like even this morning and the day before and the day before that, I'll wake up and I say, God, thank you so much for this day. I'm so glad that I'm here, and I'm grateful for this thing that you did in my life recently. And then I spend a minute thinking about why I'm so grateful for it. And then I pick another thing and another thing. So I usually pick 3 things to be grateful for. I start it with prayer, go into that, and then I start affirming where I'm going. So it's like, okay, like God wants us to have families. God wants us to be a positive influence in the world around us. He wants us to inspire those that are uninspirable. And how can I say that? God, how can I say that in a way where I can connect with you and have a good foundation so you can lead me?
It's a good question.
But then I'm also saying, God, you gave me these tools. I'm going to use them.
Yeah.
You know? And so when I use all of that together, it really helps me build out a life plan for myself. Instead of looking at the next 24, I'm looking at the next week, the next months, the next years. I have a 10-year plan written out, all that stuff. I know people that have 100-year plans written out.
Whoa.
And they're talking about creating a legacy for their entire families. So these are the types of people I've been hanging out with: entrepreneurs, creatives, and like you said, Paul, going out into the world, Bible Paul, going out in the world and hanging out with prostitutes, hanging out with drug addicts, hanging out with the lower, like, quote unquote scum of society, so that they can actually understand. Me, I got really wrapped up in it. So I would say I was practically like a full-blown alcoholic around 4.5 to 5 years ago. And then I decided to give that up. When I gave that up, actually before I gave that up, I was in the festival scene. So it was about jam bands, it was about tripping on mushrooms and acid and all that other stuff.
It's pretty big in the state.
It's huge. It's huge. And yeah. And, I think, there's probably some really, really good health benefits to mushrooms. We don't have to get into that.
God
today.
put them here for a reason.
So yeah. And that's the thing. So,
so you're dealing with a little bit of that,
so
culture,
actually,
that brutal drug culture that does,
But the interesting part was, like, I really enjoyed the people I was running into, because it was all about peace and love for most of them. They were about dancing and hula hooping and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, these people really emote
drum
love.
circle vibe, yeah.
Let's drum circle. It's very culty, but it's but so I got into that realm, and I was just like, man, there's something missing here.
Isn't that funny though? Like, yeah,
100%.
Like in the back of your head, you're just like, something there.
There's something missing, and I have the videos to prove it, and I can see it in my face.
Like the rinse and repeat happening there too.
Yeah, and I can see it in my face in the videos. I'm like, wow, like, that doesn't look like a man right there. That doesn't look like a person that's ready to take on the world. Doesn't look like a person that knows is from a hole in the ground. You know what I mean? So, so it just really, I always felt like I was the guy who had to burn his hand on the stove before, like, even when somebody, dude, that's hot, don't touch that. I'm like, yeah.
You gotta test it.
And so I was like, yeah,
you licked it, dude.
Yeah.
Going in for
You got to,
sear, baby.
Get more sizzle. Yeah. You got to baste the steak before you put it on the grill, right? So, but yeah. So, and I guess in Corinthians, you said Paul's
Corinthians, yes.
Paul's journey through that.
11 or 13.
I've always respected people that could go into the fire and come back out. I think it's one of the most important things
That's
that
our
I do.
life, whether you like it or not.
I almost feel bad for Christians that haven't yet. I actually do
will.
feel bad for Christians that haven't yet. You know what I mean? Because it's almost blind faith at that point. Like, you don't even know what the other side of the fence looks like. So, but I do. So if I can come back and still choose it, what's more powerful?
I think that like some of those people are like, I'm arrogant. When I was a kid, I was arrogant. When I was
grow up in it.
Right. Here's the thing, because I do want to point out that those two kinds of people do exist. Right. Like there's somebody out there who thinks that they can go take a puff off of a crack pipe and think that they can walk away from that because they're arrogant.
Right.
And they're not looking at every other person who smoked a crack pipe got addicted or meth. I think they'll be like this exception to the rule.
Right.
And I feel like there are people who are smarter than, say, me, who will be like,
yeah, me too.
Yeah,
100%.
100%.
Oh my God.
That would like these habits and things historically have overwhelmingly proved that they, give you this result and product every single time. And so I feel like those people are smarter and they don't have to go put their hand on the stove to learn those lessons. They actually
My brother is one of those people.
Resources.
That's one of these people.
Yeah,
Mike's one of those people.
When I said that, I directly looked at Mike because I had a feeling, Mike. I had a feeling.
It's like all of our hands are bandaged, but he's like, oh yeah.
Right. And honestly, when that goes over to women too, that's what I'm looking for. I want somebody that doesn't have blind faith. I'm looking for somebody that has been through the fire and actually is like, no, I still choose this. And I'm like, way to go.
Because you can relate to them.
Not just that, but they actually have the pain, the struggle to go along with the belief.
I think that it's different versions of pain and struggle. Like if you say no to drugs and alcohol because you know that that's going to give you a bad result in product, God's going to test you in other areas. So It's just a matter of you're going to go do the run-of-the-mill, the general thing, the thing that everybody else does. You're going to get tested in different, more exotic areas. So you can go through a different portion of reality, and you have less in common with others as a result. Which is also a good thing
nonsense.
Because you'll be able to, skip over some of that nonsense and be able to hopefully give a product.
And I would definitely argue that women that burn themselves a lot, it's like I think one phrase the red pill community
is that proverbial burning.
Yeah. Okay. One phrase the red pill will use a lot is that adversity builds men and it hurts women, and I kind of think that's true.
I guess it depends on the kind of adversity.
Yeah,
that's what I was pointing out.
It depends, obviously, but it's like some people can really damage themselves, and I think if
like, are you talking about like promiscuity? Like, there's like if you grew up like maybe you're very humble, like you had to deal with poverty growing up per se, and that is a burn,
Yeah,
and you chose to like keep yourself and your morals and not go off and make some of the shortcuts to maybe.
Well, it's just, like I think let's just say the
drugs,
the sex, drugs, alcohol. It's going to affect a woman differently than a man if they went down that phase of their life. I think the genders are going to both recover from it differently.
Baggage is a real thing. Scars are a real thing.
And that's just
I want to say that I think that if you as we get more mature, we hopefully can learn more from people who've done stuff. And not have to put our hand on the stove. That's the goal. That's why we read the Bible and try and be like, well, what's being said here? Like I was picking up on some of the stuff because I watched The Secret in high school. And I remember being like, this makes a lot of sense to my young mind. And same thing with meditation, right? And I know now, like Satan is so good at giving us stuff that we think we want or we need because it's like exactly what we think we need, but it's not that puzzle piece fit. So it's like the secret. It's like it's describing faith. It's describing faithfulness and devotion, but not to God, to an idea.
Right.
So we want to be faithful and devoted to God to find fulfillment. So Satan knows that. So he takes that and he directs it towards a job or towards a car or towards a house. And so we do that for a while. Like, this feels good. But then once you have that, it's like really that God puzzle piece of faithfulness and devotion is what we were missing. And so he likes to steer us away from that. And meditation, the same thing. It's like, you're going to sit there. I guess the nirvana philosophy is to transcend self, so you're not even yourself. When I see meditation now, I was like, that makes sense because whenever I feel and this is when I was younger, I'd be like, it makes sense because when I'm myself, I'm suffering, so I don't want to suffer. So if I could get over myself through meditation, I'll feel better. And when I realized, like, when you focus on God through prayer and not only just like thinking about this caricature of God and Jesus on the cross or whatever you think about when you think about God, but a more profound image of God, which is He is everything. He's not only His creation, He is the transcendent figure of personhood that's beyond space, time, and matter, right? Mm-hmm. So you can think about that as much as you want, and you can worship and you can meditate in that way. And so God kind of gave me back those things after I went through like the New Age journey. We went through it, you know.
Lots of great stuff.
And a lot of great
one thing
stuff,
I'd like to add to whenever you're done. I want to add some stuff to it.
Sure. Yeah.
It's just Christianity doesn't hit a lot of these points. You're not going to get like what meditates. You're not going to get the sort of like this tuning in with your body. Like we bodybuild, so we understand. I mean, we take in a lot of things to how the body aligns you with your spirit, in a nutshell, and whether it's through like breathing techniques, which are very profound. We use those in bodybuilding a lot. We use those to even the psychological exhale, like Huberman talks about this. Physiological sigh. These types of things, these practices, they help a lot. You're not going to find that necessarily in the Bible. It's just when the spirituality kind of comes into it as well. So I think there's a lot of good things to be had from these places. But it doesn't necessarily mean like if you grow up like just praying, it's like you're not going to understand exactly some of the good benefits of certain postures or breathing techniques or some of these like Eastern techniques of tuning in with your body, which will actually help you become more in tune with your spirit. So that's all I wanted to kind of say.
I'm not saying that and that's the Bible is here for principle, right? So when it talks about prayer, like it says Jesus went and prayed for a whole night. It's like, have you tried praying for an hour? Like, there's a lot of mystery. God likes to ask us questions. He asked Adam, where are you? You know, he knows the answers to these things, but there's feedback that happens. God wants to know us, and he's allowing us to express. So, yeah, it's not necessarily this. It's like the Old Testament, right? They couldn't fit every single law in there, right? Like, there's no laws in the Old Testament about lust. You're not going to find it. It doesn't exist. There's laws about adultery, but then when you flip to the New Testament, Jesus is talking about lust, right? So it's not a book that's talking about every single sin. You can't do this, you can't do that, because God put the law in your heart, so you know good from bad. You know these things, and so those principles are what we rely on to try and get that faith that we want so much, to try and get more in tune with God. So, like Joe was saying, like stretching, right? Does it have to be yoga? No, you can stretch and breathe, and it doesn't have to be yoga, right? It's the things that are attached into that stuff, like some of the Eastern philosophies that sometimes noodle their way in, and then all of a sudden that becomes a focus. And that's why you have to handle these things with care, because yes, there's good stuff in it, you know, but you do have to handle them with care.
So
what's your why? Going back to that, like it's like, why are you meditating? It's like I'm meditating so I can calm my ADHD brain down so I can hear God's voice. That's why I'm doing that. So it's like, wow. Okay. It's just like, this podcast, great. This podcast is great. That's kind of how I see it. You know, it's like, how are you going to give honor to this? I mean, a gardener can give honor to God by planting bean greens or green beans, you know? You know, a drywall guy can hang sheets of drywall and give honor to God that way.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? As long as the intention is there, right? So that's kind of how I see it. And like Joe was talking about, there are some great things that aren't being talked about in the Bible that are that like breathing techniques, and meditation is just a way to
doesn't say how to do a bench press in the Bible.
It doesn't say
great thing.
Right.
Doesn't talk about how to do squats in the Bible. Doesn't tell you how to do, you know, a E minor scale. I don't see that either.
What's the E minor scale again? Yeah.
God's like, this is the E minor scale. Whole chapter on it, like, wow, this is crazy.
Whole step, half step.
Oh God, like on Egyptian pyramids.
It's for you.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah, I agree.
I wanted to point something out. Paul had added is like something we like a lot. It's making its way into the faith, and we're so happy about it because I love psychology. I love Jordan Peterson. I like peeling back the layers of what this mechanism we're in, and spirit and a body, so to speak, is capable of doing. What makes it turn? How can we influence it better? You know, like Ian McGilchrist's work about left-right brain. Jordan Peterson's, the case studies, the clinical stuff, all that, dude.
And I'm sure a lot of people, when that started coming to the forefront, a lot of religious people were like, no, this is devil's work.
Yep.
You know? Is it?
I don't think so. I think you got to be careful with how much you focus on all of it. And I think you got to, again, use the Bible as principle for it.
Yeah, you could take it like, you could obviously, because we were talking about that on the live last night, and how some of these scientific things, mating habits amongst us are, they're scientifically based, and they can
mating habits.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we can like use that with biblical, like it almost just reaffirms the biblical narrative even more. Mm-hmm. But also people could take that and be like, well, our brains are wired for variety and like promiscuity, basically. So scientifically, that's how we should behave. And then so you could take it off the other rails.
And then couple that with the Old Testament not having any hard lines on rules with polygamy. You're like, okay, we're really screwed now.
Yeah, so true. I think you can massage the data to whatever you want the narrative to be in the end.
That's so true. Mm-hmm. That's so true.
Totally. Yep. And going back to it, intention and, again, your why. Like, why are you doing the things that you're doing? What's your intention behind those things? If you're going out to the gym and exercising to be aesthetically pleasing like these gentlemen are right here.
Include yourself, man.
Ladies.
These boys got some gains over here.
Trying to get the gains. Yeah, those are coming last. The fat went away first. I was 215, 220 around there when I was.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah, and I went down to 165.
Whoa,
so, incredible!
Wait, tell us about
that
journey.
It was only in 2 months.
I had a similar. And then I'd be like, "Well, you're probably not doing."
Like, no. Do we need to take you to the hospital?
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I had a similar journey with weight loss too. I went from 225. I think my lowest was 165.
Bro,
yeah,
there you go. Yeah, and you're what, 6 foot?
About 5'11".
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So I definitely, it was great. But what came from that is like, wow, like I look good. I want to go
man.
Try this out on the streets a little bit. You know what I mean? To be honest with you.
He said, try this out on the streets.
Well, I'm sure
it works. I'm not gonna lie.
You feel so much better too. Like, just think about
all is hilarious.
We're being honest. And but it switched from doing the aesthetic, like being aesthetic, and it's now like honestly in the last and especially in the last couple days here, like I've just had the intention of my why behind the workout be
nice.
How can I have functional strength? So now I get more reps in. Now I'm like, man, I want to hurt when I leave here. Why do I want to hurt? Because I want to lift more. I want to be able to support my body. I want to be able to stand up straight. And you know how it is after you get like a nice bench press in, you're like, your spine feels aligned. You're like, ooh, and you walk out of the gym like 3 inches taller. And I'm like, wow, this is great. Okay.
Feels great.
I'm not walking out of this gym feeling taller to go impress on somebody, something. I'm going out because I'm like, wow, I actually feel good, period.
That's exactly it.
That's it.
It's a good why, huh?
Yeah,
it'll keep you going throughout life.
Yeah, and it's like, and I've had those days where I'm like, man, like I just dropped 50 pounds. Like, why am I not getting this attention that I want? That I
well,
need,
and that's see that's part of the why too, though. You got to watch yourself. Why are you in the gym? Is it to gain attention from the opposite sex?
A bunch of it is. I think a lot of it is for everybody.
Well, exactly.
It's a very natural thing to feel too.
Right, well, it's part of it. Like health, and like we want to go for the healthiest, strongest looking mate. That's normal. So like obviously, the better you look, the better you're going to be.
But if you're not there for yourself in the long term, it's like
well, you're eventually going to be 45, 55, 60 years old, know.
Or you're sitting in your house when you're 35, and you're like, why am I not getting dates? I can bench press 250.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It's like, that's not going to do any you guys meatheads any justice.
No, it's a piece of the pie.
They're not meatheads. They're actually very intellectual people.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're a little bit strong back, dull-minded.
I wouldn't say so. I've heard you. I got to have an hour conversation.
Shake us up to get some. It's like one of those little balls, you gotta shake that thing up, get the snowflakes in there.
But that's so when did that journey, weight loss journey, happen? Was that something recent?
So I went through a breakup. I was with this girl for about almost 5 years.
Breakups do this.
Yes, breakups do this.
Handling for that GM.
Thank you, ex-girlfriend. No, but she's very happy now. She's actually she's engaged, which is great.
Congratulations.
But yeah, it was. I just got really comfortable in the relationship. It was like, wow, like this is the longest relationship I've ever had. I'm like, wow, this is this is great. I can just be myself. And then we started going out. It was like the working out stopped. Everything kind of stopped. But then, let's see, like 2 years before we broke up, like we broke up in the middle of that relationship. And I was like, okay, it's time to get rid of alcohol. Like, I don't know if like it's the alcohol that's not giving me clarity for this relationship, because obviously she wants something out of this that I'm not able to give her. What is that? Dude. So I stopped, and I stopped drinking for 4.5 years, and actually I started up like 2 months ago, but haven't drank in like, it'll be a week on Friday. So, and I even went to the bar last night and just had non-alcoholic beverages and just was able to hang out. So I was like, okay, I don't think an alcoholic could really do this. So I was
how
like,
long
okay.
were you completely dry?
4.5 years.
4.5 years is a long time.
So, but yeah, so the journey started around just I think it really started in that first breakup where I was like, wow, like I even had friends be like, are you okay? Like, you're gaining weight, you're doing this. I'm like, and those are the kind of friends that I'm talking about, like hold you accountable. Like the other ones that won't even like make sure you're benching weight right, and they're supposed to be your best friends. It's kind of just like, come on, man, like help me out. Help me out. If I look like crap, tell me.
I was mad at my family when I look back at photos of me when I was overweight. I'm like, why did you say something?
Yeah. Right,
like,
right.
What?
Like a little bit of that chastising, razzing is kind of good sometimes.
You don't see that stuff when it's like a slow progression off the cliff.
Right. So my Irish family, I walked in, like we always used to do like Sunday afternoon like lunches at my parents' house when me and my girlfriend at the time lived together. And I remember they would do jams like, oh, you're not working out anymore. All right. Yeah. Come sit down and have some food. Almost like that's all I needed to hear. And I was like, dang it. You need to do something about this. But, it was like, okay, well, I'm back in the dating scene. I literally just looked in the mirror and I was just like,
I wouldn't want to date that.
That's exactly right. And I was just like, that's not my standard looking back at me. Like, this is ridiculous. And, and my ex was probably thinking the same thing too. She's like, you've lost some sort of blah, blah. But then I opened up a real estate business right when I got sober, and we were doing wholesaling. So I would go into houses, I'd put them under contract, and then flip those contracts for money. And I think my first one was like $1,200 that I made. My second was $5,000. Next one was $6,000. The last one was $10,000. And I felt like I was getting a lot done, and I was taking care of my finances. And being a musician, being in that realm, I'm sorry, artists, you guys got to do a lot better job with minding business as much as you do the fretboard or your voice. I'm sorry. If you really want to make it, you got to fall in love with capitalism just a little bit, or you're seriously going to be 60 and still
trying to live the dream.
Unless you're really, 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 really good.
Right.
Which is like,
or really, 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 really love playing in a corner in a bar the rest of your life.
Yeah, either one of those.
Like and there's people like that. They're like happier than a pig and slop. Like they're like, I'm in the corner. But
those are the real ones. They just play for the playing, dude.
I mean, I talked about this last night to a friend. They're like, man, I just saw you grow so much, and like it was the person that helped We the Kings pass off their original demo to the person that signed them. He said, I've never offered anybody else that leg up, but for you, Paul, I was going to send off your demo, and like I've never done that for anybody. And he was talking to me about all this stuff, and he was like, and I noticed how you changed. What was it? And I was like, well, it was the sobriety thing. And then I sat down and I realized where I was I was dissing myself by not learning business function, about not learning finance, and not learning certain things. I mean, I opened up an Roth IRA when I was 25, and my true investors out there are going to crap on me for that, but whatever. At least I'm doing it. And then, it came another bucket of real estate investing, and I was just like, wow, I'm finally learning the stuff that I would have never thought I would learn. If I was drinking, that would have never happened. None of this would have ever happened. So at the end of that first relation, or that not first relationship, but the last relationship, she mentioned that I was really focused on money. And my thought in my head was like, well, yeah, I'm probably really focused on money because some other people in this house aren't focused on money as much as like in a foundation, that we need to create together.
It's a man's job. We got to provide, man.
Well, and I would say in the gynocentric feminist world, if you want it to be equal, you got to share that. I'm just letting you know. So I remember I went on a first date with a girl that claimed to be a feminist, and I was like, okay. I was like, do you want to split this? The whole environment changed after that. I was just like, okay, well, I mean, you want equality, so I mean, you shared my food, I shared mine, and let's split it down the middle.
Yeah,
nope. You know?
It's a good lesson.
Nope. I think after that, I texted her. It took her a day to get back to me. So I was just like, okay, cool. Like, honestly, you still believe in some things, but yeah. So what I'm really wanting to get to, and I talked to Joe, John, and Mike about this before I stepped on the podcast, was I got to go down to the depths of being an addict over something, and I still smoke weed every day, and I think it's a brilliant drug. I hate to call it even a drug.
It sounds so like clinical, but I actually appreciate it being called that, because in truth,
it is. It is. And you can do way too much of that too.
Yeah.
First of all, it's expensive. Your tolerance goes up. You're going to smoke way too much. You're spending money. Supposedly, like the top 2 things that we Americans spend most of our money on is addictions.
Oh, totally.
But yeah, so I got to see the fold of what being an alcoholic was like. I got to see all that kind of stuff. And when I got out of it, I was like, wow, this is totally different. Now, 4.5 years later, when I started drinking again, I started to get more brain fog. I started to notice like where like the utopia was starting to disappear. And I was like, oh, wait. I need to get back there. And now, not drinking for at least a week, waking up, doing prayer, spending at least 10 to 20 minutes on just what I'm grateful for and what I have, and just thanking God for that. And then going into a meditation of just like clearing everything so I can be able to have as much brain strength as I possibly can. Yeah. And then going over my 10-year plan every single day. It trains me to be like, oh, wow, I really want to do this, And I'm, like I said, I've had those moments in life where going and visiting my brother in San Antonio, and I see a musician playing on the stage, and of course he's playing to like 10, 20 people. He used to be like an American Idol finalist and all this stuff. He just looks like the saddest dude that ever rocked 6 strings in his life. And I look at this guy, and I hadn't played in like 2 or 3 weeks, and I like started to tear up. I was like, I really do love doing this stuff. And this guy's up here just grabbing the check. I was like, it was like this very real moment for me. I was like, man, I really can't escape this. My brother's a dentist too. So he's making hella money. You know what I mean? And here I am just like, okay, I love finance. I like money and the power that it's able to give you to be able to serve, to be able to have more brain power, to be able to think about other things you can do. You can, if you guys had all the money in the world, where would your podcast be? Need I say more? So like, money's not evil. But there's a lot of people in like these different cultures that I've been in, especially with arts culture. They think that money and capitalism is the worst thing that ever happened. I want you to take a look at every single thing that we've tried in economics in the history of this planet. It's the best working thing so far. It's the best working thing. And a lot of people try to dismantle it, especially people in the art scene. I've had this conversation so many times with people outside the art scene.
Yeah, you're right about that.
And I'm just like, dude, if you're really trying to take this down, what you're saying to yourself is, I give up. I don't know how to make money here. I give up. I don't know. Like, dude, sponsorships. Capitalism allows sponsorships to happen. It allows donations to happen. Same thing with you guys.
Do you think there's like what stems that community is because of jealousy in the end? Because frankly, the artist community, like the majority, are not making money.
Yeah, and they're working much harder than the people that are.
Yeah. And so,
and not only mention putting their passion, their heart, and their whole entire body into it, literally. But sorry, go ahead.
But yeah, that's just kind of like my question of your view. Is that what kind of like the foundation maybe to why they have such an issue with it?
I think so. And, I'm going to say this right now. If you've ever said whoever has millions of dollars must have screwed somebody over, I'm just going to say this to you right now. You're wrong. You're just straight up wrong. Some of the best people I've met in my life have given millions of dollars over to Africa and other places because they have money. They're able to change lives.
I'd even say to them, I'd be like, "Yo, you screwed people over."
Yeah, and
so was everybody, man. So I think, get off the high horse because
I think
I don't care if it was your mom,
but I think
or your bro or your girlfriend, whatever. If somebody's a serial killer business guy,
they exist fine, but it doesn't mean that's every millionaire out there.
No, just before we started the podcast, you even said, Led Zeppelin, some of them believe in satanic type of stuff. You know what I mean? It's just like, okay, well, some people play guitar to sing hallelujah.
Yeah, it's like the Christian churches that hear distorted guitar, it's rock music, it's from the devil.
Yeah, but I think I sense a little bit of jealousy. I sense this lack of understanding that they have, or they just decided to just be like, no, that's not for me. I'm going to be one of the trues and the tribal thinkers over here. You know what I mean? So, and I never liked that. I didn't like that in the business term either. There's some culty stuff that goes on in business where like people get together. I was a part of a mastermind, not to say that it's culty, but you have to pay $25,000 a year to be a part of it. I was on the video crew, but each person has to pay $25,000 a year to just be in the room. And that doesn't cover their hotel, that doesn't cover their plane flights, anything, but it's to be in the room with other entrepreneurs.
Very skeptical of that.
I've seen the vast majority.
So culty and just weird.
But it's really not. It's really not. This is what we're doing here.
Paying to education, right?
I mean, that's what we're doing here.
Well, you don't have to pay $25,000 to be here, Paul. Yeah.
Well, that's true. That's true.
It's not. One thing I want to point out too, just specifically with musicians, being in the music industry, it's specifically like a Shark Tank, dude. There's a lot of people that get stolen because you're dealing with intellectual property.
Right.
It's not like I have a product. Here you go. I copywrote it. It's like a lot of these people are artists. They don't know how to treat their art form as a product. They show their music to someone. Maybe it gets ripped off. Right. It's a very cutthroat industry, and I can see how a lot of people would not so much jealousy, but get jaded. Totally. And they end up having like this. It destroys their art form, kind of like we spoke earlier on. Their love for art because it becomes this world that they weren't expecting, and there's a bunch of money in entertainment. So it's a massive business.
And the people that know
only a few people are making a bunch of money off of it, and they really, they go out and they kill the sheep, so to speak, and those sheep get really angry because they're not business oriented. A lot of the most creative people, they're not going to be business oriented.
To protect yourself.
They're not going to be unless they have someone like a good manager or someone that discovers them and says, "I'm going to protect them and I'm going to put the work into them and I'm going to help them along their career." But if you have to wear all the hats like you do, that's a very hard. Well, it takes so much more bandwidth. Like when you're out there, like being your own manager. No, but I think. Well, what I was talking about is specifically like it's just it's a very cutthroat industry, and it has a way of jading creative people, which tend to be in that industry, and they want to make the money. It's very lucrative if you do it right. And I was then going forward into you having to wear all these hats, and how the bandwidth sort of gets eaten up. When you have to be a manager, when you have to be the promoter, when you have to be, the band coordinator, when you have all the equipment, you have to run maintenance on them. There's all these sort of bandwidth getting eaten up when you just want to maybe do one thing. You know what I mean? You just want to pay attention, specialize in one thing when you realize that nothing's really getting paid the attention it really deserves. And here you are trying to wear all the hats at once, and it can be very taxing, and it can almost be like, why'd I get into this? Like, I didn't choose to do this. I didn't choose to be a manager. I didn't choose to be a promoter. I wanted to just play music. So I think a lot of people end up becoming jaded when they find out this is a very hard job. Like, you don't get to do all that stuff that you wanted to do all the time. You're not going to be treated like a prima donna. So I think that's a lot of what it is. It's a lot of that kind of.
And I would say, like, if you want to be a professional musician, then you're going to have to get real with the fact that you want to be a business owner. It's really what you want to be.
Right.
And so, like, every business owner, it doesn't matter if you're pressure washing people's porches or you're, building houses or selling cars, you are going to wear a bunch of hats. And the reason why is you have to cross-examine the people who are doing work for you. I don't care if it's your CPA or somebody you're subcontracting stuff to. You're going to have to work your ass off.
My roommate's figuring that out right now. He's starting a roofing company, and like he's just like, there's so much of the admin type work that like I'm trying to wrap my head around, and I just want to get projects done. And it's like I got to do all of this other stuff that slows you down.
Right. Exactly. Like, he has this area of expertise where he's looking at a roof. He's like, I can do that. But all that back end work, however you want to say it, it's essential to get that roof on the house. Right. So if you want to be a musician, you're a pro level musician, because I will say there's tons of gigs where you show up to play. You can be a great player and you're not going to play your originals. You're not going to be that maybe dream musician you had in the beginning.
but you're still making a check, you're still making some money, and you're not wearing all those hats.
What percentage of musicians, since you guys have all been in the sphere, do you think actually can make money?
I think if you have reason, I'll say this: if you have reasonable talent,
or support yourself, or
like support a single guy.
Yeah, I'd say if you have reasonable talent, it's not out of reach. You might be playing country songs. You might be playing a genre of music you're not hot about.
Because I think about, like, you know, it's a passion, and you're trying to make money off a passion, which, you know, whether it's sports, like if you're going to make it to the NFL, guess what? You're going to be the top 0.01% of people playing that sport.
Yeah.
I know, like, if you look at like race car driving,
same thing.
The majority of race car drivers are losing drastic amounts of money. It's a hobby.
Yes.
They're getting paid. They're literally paying to do it.
On the beach circuit and everything.
Yeah, I think most people, like, they're not good enough to do any of those promotions.
Like my friend races like near professional level, and he's paid by a team to race. And the owner, they're just rich guys that they dump $30,000 on a race as a hobby.
Right.
And they pay drivers. And for them, it's like racing horses.
Totally.
Right.
You know, and I think that doesn't really exist for musicians. Like maybe Johnny Depp is one of those guys.
Yeah.
You can go and play with the Hollywood vampires or whatever, and it's not like he's great. It's kind of like he's Johnny Depp. You know, people are like, I saw you in this movie. But I think for a musician, if he's going to be making a paycheck that can support him, he has to be beyond reason. He has to be... Because I kind of look at like good.
You said how many?
Great.
How many?
How many?
What percentage?
What percentage? Like try
10% maybe.
10%, yeah, 10%.
I would say. But I wanted to bring up 2 points to what makes him successful. Is like Paul's very personable. There are so many times where a musician could be way better, and if he can't get along with anybody, he's not gonna get hired.
You know? Or like I played places with. The good thing about having hired guys is that they play with a bunch of people around the scene. And I've heard numerous times, like at certain venues, like we don't get this kind of crowd reaction with anybody else that we play, or we haven't made this much money with anybody else that we play. And yeah, the personable thing is really, really important because people think that's like you know, it's the virtuosic downfall. You know, like some of the best musicians I know like cannot hold a conversation outside of their cats and their guitar. Or weed, and you're just like, okay, man, but I'll give you $200 to come lay down guitar on this. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of
they're more like a studio musician.
That part is true across every work field too. Like I was thinking about interviewing like when I was younger. Like it's amazing how many companies care more about you being a cultural fit to their company than they actually care about your skills.
100%, and that's really important now. There's Fortune 500 companies that are starting up.
Level you out, man.
That's really interesting.
But they're starting up like offices to just deal with, you know, cancel culture, with inclusivity. You know, that's a huge thing. These people, their whole office looks at every line of copy that they have that goes out publicly, and they're like, is anyone going to be offended? You know what I mean? And like that's a thing, and like that's new jobs that are being created out of more of a leftist mentality of trying to be innovative as much as they possibly can to try to change.
So weird.
I wouldn't see that's innovative or creative. I would say that's the opposite of doing that, because if you're being creative and innovative, that means it's something more peripheral. It's more cutting edge. It's more it's more rebellious in a lot of ways. It's definitely not going to fit in with what's happening.
I think what they think is it's going to give them access to more creative individuals, because you're not going to like exclude anyone or offend anyone. So every creative individual will try to come work for them.
That inclusivity thing.
But and the same bleeds over the dating. It's like, okay, so who are you?
Chameleon?
Yeah, it's like, okay, like
that's a tough question.
You can't offend anybody. Do you have any beliefs of your own?
For real.
You
That's
know
really
what I mean?
tough,
It's like,
especially when you like someone a lot.
Yeah. You can't give them the free movie weekend where you show all your best films. You got to put some dirt in there too. Yeah. And like, there's this movie called The Big Short where
I love that movie.
It's a great movie. It's a great movie. The line that sticks out to me was Michael Burry, that was played by Christian Bale. He says,
"Cool.
I met my wife on a dating site," but he says, like, he reached out or she reached out, and he was like, I just want to let you know I'm in a bunch of debt. This is going on with my life, and this is happening. She's like, you're exactly what I was looking for. And he's like, what?
Yeah, 'cause
someone
he's like,
honest.
He's on the spectrum too, so he's just like,
and I have
direct and like.
I have friends that know him personally. You know what I mean? So they're like very like,
I love him on Twitter.
He can be weird, but
he's great.
He's one of the smartest guys I know. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, but yeah,
that kind of thing is attractive, and I've always been attracted to people that are direct. You know, because I have trouble doing that myself. Because it's just when I like somebody, I'm excited,
right?
You know,
yeah.
So and it's not it's me excited, but it's not as me like, this is who you're gonna get the next, you know, the most of your life,
right?
So, yeah, it's
how could it be like?
It's
people,
not easy. You definitely, I think it takes
people
practice
change too, man.
But some people are more excitable than others, and you know, dopamine starts flowing.
And I think being in entertainment,
somebody else,
you're supposed to.
yeah. Well, and go ahead.
If you're in entertainment, like, and you know this, Paul, like when you're singing a song about love, you have to act it out. You know, you have to sort of bend your will and be a vestige of that song for that moment. Otherwise, it feels insincere. You're not a good performer.
Right.
Performance. It's a bit of acting.
You know, it's a bit of acting. It's a bit of that sort of thing that goes on where you're becoming something that you may not exactly be at the moment.
Right.
You know, because you want to embody the song.
Right.
And that's something we learn how to do. You know, and so like I know musicians are prone to this because they're able to sort of do that with people, you know, and they know what's going to fit that mold. They're perceptive, they're
chameleon,
sensitive, it's
like
chameleon
Mike
thing.
was saying.
But there's also that you run that risk of being insincere to what you want to do, right?
Yeah.
I remember hearing a story about Miles Davis. And like he was one of those
my
rare,
favorites.
Yeah, he's a
Seriously.
rare musician because he was a virtuoso of virtuosos. So you're talking like 1% out of the 1%. And so, you know, he was not that guy who's just being affable, trying to.
He was also on the spectrum.
He was.
You could say.
Was he really?
You could definitely say that. And the story is kind of it illustrates that. So he goes and he's playing a gig, and this young guy goes up to him and he's like, "Yo, man, you know, I've been wanting to see you." And he's like, "Don't talk to me." Basically shuts him down hard. He's like, "I'm focusing on the music, and that music is for you. So if I get locked up in a conversation with you, that's going to distract me, and I'm not going to give you your best show tonight."
Right.
And it was really interesting the way that Miles had thought about it, making the music first. And in a way, even though he wasn't down for the small talk with that guy, he's like, "You know what? I love you so much that I want to give you the best show. And that's going to require us not connecting right now.
Yeah.
So that I can do what I have to do for you."
I like that.
And it's cool because, like, in relationships, I've thought about that too, especially because the same thing happens in, like, heterosexual relationships where it can happen in business too, where you're trying to make yourself attractive so that you can get a deal, you know, or you can get a relationship. And you start to, like you said, show your best. Sometimes it's not even your best, you know.
It's what you think is the best, and then you end up missing a lot.
It's a contrived.
You can miss a lot. You can miss a lot of what the other person's actually trying to,
because you're not right
communicate to you because you're thinking this is what they're doing.
And I've messed up relationships early on where I'm like, oh man,
you misinterpreted
why did I do that? Like looking back, I'm like, I could have just been myself, and been totally fine and better.
I know.
You know what I mean?
I think we lose focus in those moments because, you know, being a human means you need to know when to apply that stuff. There's a time to do that. You know, like maybe you're at a funeral and you have people you need to console and you're coming second, bro. You know, you need to try and do that.
Yeah.
There's other times in business where it's like you need to stand your ground and sort of be an a-hole when you have to be. Because it's essential to protecting your business, and men need that wisdom. And going back to the Bible, that's where our wisdom does come from, you know, because you're not going to be able to. It's not bad to be a social chameleon when you're trying to survive in Iraq, you know, as a soldier. Maybe you have to be for, you know, a day or two to get by and survive or protect somebody. I don't know, you know, but the idea is that when you're being sincere to yourself, you know, you can take those risks because you don't want to be a liar. You know, and if you make the habit of being a liar, you're going to lose yourself, you know, and you won't make good art.
Hence why this is still one of the greatest countries in the world.
Yep.
It's like freedom of speech isn't completely gone yet. You know,
God, dude.
It's being tested a lot from what I can see. But
so you were telling me with that Jordan Peterson thing. Remember that with the what was that lady's name? The woman, he got famous for that one, Kathy Newman. So she's like, how did you, because you watched it recently. She's basically saying, like, how can you call people out? And he's like, well, you just called me out this entire, made this whole thing super uncomfortable. Yeah. And he's like, and I think you should have the right to do that.
Right.
You should have the right to make me uncomfortable.
It says something along the lines of like, what gives you the power to be able to say the things that are your beliefs around certain topics, whether it be like, I think it was the freedom of speech thing, and you're not going to control words, or even bring up like certain conversations. And his rebuttal to that was like, well, you've been able to have the right to do that, and frankly, it's been quite uncomfortable. But that's why I do it. That's why we're here, to have these uncomfortable situations. And the other thing, like, I know that we're probably wrapping up pretty soon, but I guess something that on my heart that I want to share is,
yes, please.
Women and men practice a little bit more grace with one another. You know, we live in such a fast-paced world now, where if somebody says the wrong thing, you have 45,000 other options, and it's just like, wow, you just let a very small perceived red flag that you don't even understand yet. But it's on a world, a little flag dot on a world that you could have created with somebody else and been really, truly happy because somebody texted you the wrong thing. I'm like, that's pretty ridiculous. That's very shallow. It's not graceful whatsoever. You know what I mean? But I understand. Like, there's a lot of attention. There's a lot of people in your DMs, whatever you want to say. But it's a testament to who you're going to be in a relationship to if you give up on people that fast.
Mm-hmm.
You know
and
what I mean?
Even Christians, like, when you hear words like meditation, it's like, well, what do you mean?
Right.
You know, or like stuff like that. Don't.
Yeah. I mean, I've had, you know, in one of those parts of my life where I was back and forth with Christianity and really I was testing it. I think when it really came down to it, I was like testing it. So I had the MD for a church come up to me and like basically question my belief system, and in front of everybody during church.
Nice.
And I said, Rick, the closest thing that brings me to God, Rick, is music, and that's why I'm here. Do we have a problem? Mm-hmm. I was like, no, we don't. That's what brought me to Christ was music. So step off. Yeah. So yeah, and that's, yeah, I got intense there for a second.
I like the intensity.
I know. You see that on the camera? It maybe later in editing you can do a zoom in on their face.
I like the intensity.
They're like, yeah. But yeah,
no, that's a good word. People need more grace because in a culture where everyone's afraid of insulting each other,
and even for us, like walk around judging people, like
dude, yeah.
I notice when I judge people too much is when I feel crappy about whatever I've done, and I walk through a grocery store. I'm like, I look at somebody that this is it. When I started drinking again, I started seeing people at the bar as normal people again. Like when I wasn't drinking, I was just like, no, can't do that. It's a bad judgment call. Any alcohol at all, blah, blah. And I was passing judgment on all these people that are having fun.
Because you had an issue with it.
Because I had the issue.
Yeah, projecting your own issues on other people.
Yeah, so when I started drinking, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I've been really
brutal.
Being brutal to people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, that's not cool. And somebody asked me recently, a good friend that I knew in youth group, I went to her art show, and she was like, so you're drinking again? And I was like, I said a few things, but
not like last time.
Yeah,
I'm drinking something.
Right. The main thing was like, I just stopped taking myself so seriously, and
I wanted to point something weird out though.
I'm ready.
I kind of noticed, like, when people don't want to offend anybody so bad,
they end up offending everybody.
Well, no, it's not even that, dude. Well, they offend their
offending
own
themselves. Yeah.
I'm trying to make a point. It's like interesting how this works. When the offender steps out and they all say it's okay, or they all agree that so-and-so offended, the vitriol is out. It's insane, dude.
It's Beatlemania.
Which is like the lack of that grace and mercy. So it's almost like it builds up because no one's allowed to say anything because they're so afraid to offend anybody. Mm-hmm. And then once that one like sacrificial lamb walks out because he said something wrong and the red flag goes down, they just cut him bits and pieces. Or her to bits and pieces.
There's no grace in that.
Because if you're allowed to be real, you're going to be doing a little bit of that judging, a little bit of that truth telling, a little bit of who you are without so much of that fear. And there's going to be less of that buildup, and you're not going to just cut someone's head off when that person is that sacrificial lamb.
Well, it's kind of like Jordan's rule on hiding stuff in the fog.
Yeah.
Like if you're just like sweeping stuff under the rug, like over and over again, that are just small little things, and then eventually the bomb goes off though, and it becomes a massive problem.
Yeah, Juice Merlo talks about it too, and he talks about mass hypnosis, and a good example of this is like Beatlemania. So like a lot of the young women back then, they couldn't really express themselves very much, like the way that they wanted to. Like, they would get out and dance, and it was like. But when the Beatles came, like one girl would just freak out. You would see her like just, and it was exciting for her. She's like, "I'm gonna scream right now," let it all rip. And then the other girl does, and then the other girl, and then every girl is just literally having some kind of like out of body experience, and it's like you realize that it's just like the domino effect at that point in time, but. That's that built-up resentment that ends up occurring within societies and civilizations, and all it takes is that one sacrificial lamb to go out there, whether it's the Beatles or whether it's that one guy or that one girl scapegoat, and then boom, the whole masses get behind it in a profoundly emotional way, and it's crazy.
And I think as believers, the reason why there's a lot of things we have to deny ourselves. We have to say no to like excessive drinking. We have to say no to stuff we want to do all the time because we know it's going to hurt us. And in many ways, people in the faith, and I felt this way before, it's like it's building up. Like there's this tension that's just building up in you. And a lot of times it's like you have to give that to God. You can't forget that step. You can't forget that step of Christ being your strength. Because in surrender, like you were talking about opening up this conversation with Christ take the wheel, that is not a passive action at all.
No.
Surrender is serious. You want to have your hands all over that wheel, and it's a constant thing. It's almost like the hardest thing you can do, really is do that. And so it's a reminder. It's not building up in you, man. Like if you're dealing with issues that feel like you're denying yourself, kind of like, if it's anger, for me, it was a lot of anger growing up. Metal was that outlet. And when I finally able to give that to God, it took place and I was renewed. And then I had like compassion and love. Some different stuff took it on.
I'm sure there's a lot of checkpoints to that point. It's like, wow, totally. You finally notice what you're doing and it's got to feel terrible. It's like, okay, well, how do I deal with this? How do I deal with myself now? Because I've obviously treated myself like crap and allowed myself to get here. So that definitely is a hands-on experience, to say the least.
It is. It's just something we all have to grow into understanding, and in this world where you can't say the wrong thing, or if you do, you will, become a social pariah. We have to be willing to make stands about truth and say them with knowing that it's for Christ, and subject ourselves to whatever kind of persecution, whatever kind of social pariah exclusion, whatever kind of pressure. Really, I don't know what it is.
It also goes into making mistakes. Because that's part of life. You know what I mean? You're going to make people unhappy. You're going to make yourself unhappy, and you're going to do things that you look back on and be like, I shouldn't have done it that way. I should have done it this way. And that's part of, if you're not living, you're not making mistakes. You're obviously not going and putting yourself out there. Otherwise, you're in a comfort zone, so to speak. And pain and suffering are indispensable for learning. Yep. They're indispensable. You better be learning and putting yourself in those places.
Right. And it goes back to, again, like, what's the intention? What's the why of, and do you even have time to sit down and call out all these different people? Like, I come from a different boat because I don't think it's great to watch the news all the time. You know what I mean? I don't think it's great to be
agreed.
Like, you know what I mean? I think it's one of the most terrible things you can do. I mean,
there's an unlimited amount of things to be upset about.
A limited amount.
True.
And again,
some people picking for you.
And it's like some of the most successful people I've ever met in my life, they say, where your focus goes, it grows. Whatever it is. So if you keep on finding problems, you're going to become a problem. Like, it's just
thought becomes an action, action becomes a habit becomes a destiny.
Yeah. And then it starts to mess with your neuroplasticity in your mind. So your mind starts, honestly, forming new cells to learn or be that thing.
I totally agree.
So it's just like, if you're a Karen or a Ken that's on social media all the time just looking for fires to talk about, then I'm sorry, you're one of the that's like a telltale sign for me that you don't have a lot going on. and that's pretty sad.
You're a fiend.
You're
literally fiending.
And there's times like honestly, like I'll just like find myself opening up Instagram and just like scrolling. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even know I was here.
Yeah, it's
like that's a scary thing.
There's Christians that are like literally waiting for Christ to come home on Facebook. I'm like,
like not happening here.
Right.
Every news event is some sort of end times prophecy.
Yeah,
true.
Man, right? Bro. Yeah, and they're like, what are you doing like in your life today, like for the people around you? I'm like, are you just sending memes? Is that all you are doing?
And to rope all this in, I guess like what I'm called to say is, where's your intention for everything that you do? Where's your intention for every single little thing that comes out of your mouth, every action that you have, every thought that you have? What's the intention behind it? And is it going to hurt you? Is it going to inspire you? Is it going to move you to find more ways to have a positive impact on yourself or the world? What is your intention, and why are you doing the things that you're
hopefully.
doing? Yeah.
Self-examination, man.
Yeah.
Start your mornings off with it.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And like, honestly, like you win the battle with your mind the first hour of the day. Like I used to do this all the time, but for the last 2 days I've charged my phone in the living room, and I don't set an alarm because I have that luxury. Obviously that's one of the give and takes with not having a boss, right? So, and then I wake up, and the first thing I do is pray. I thank God for having my eyes open before even like really even have a thought or start to analyze whatever I'm doing that day.
Set the deck, man.
And then I don't pick up my phone for an hour. As soon as I wake up, it's there.
And I think just as a little side note,
yeah,
I don't want to get into conspiracies, but the truth is there are people in this world that will they want to take your mind and your soul from you. They want to take your salvation.
Your attention.
And now we call it attention.
Yeah, we call it attention,
funny?
Right?
Isn't that funny?
With that phone, bro.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big one.
Right.
It's a currency.
It's a currency. And I think it's like hour before bed and when you wake up. Well, that's good. I mean, just not starting it with, I read my Bible on my phone. And, but that's a little different.
No, there's a book you can grab that's
You're
physical
right.
in the house.
You're right.
Get the papyrus.
It's not as great as the Bible Hub, but yeah. I mean,
the Bible app is just so good.
That's right there where I left it.
No, but really, I mean, before you know it, even if you are reading the Bible, it's so easy for that finger to go look at something else. You could be on Facebook in 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, actively removing it from your space is cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Much better thoughts, much better like alignment. Just I love it.
Yeah.
And every time I end up going back, I'm like, what am I fiending?
Yeah.
Feeling like a fiend,
bro.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we covered. What's all the stuff that we covered today?
I can't believe you're gonna try and do this.
No, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it.
How we met.
So of course, how we met.
Of course,
but like let's say the biggest points. Like so, we talked about
the why,
having a why, your intention behind what's going on, being able to drop the judgment and go out and hang in different places with different people. If you're a Christian, if you're a diehard and you don't go out and hang in different places and hang with different people, I'm sorry you're not being like Christ.
True.
Sorry about that.
True.
But it's the truth. I don't know what else to say. That's my belief. So, and it's
in the
painted
Bible,
right there in the Bible. So it's like if you want to hide away, it's really safe to hide away with your YouTube channels and everything else in your video games in your house. And say you're a Christian.
Well, how are you going to reach people?
And play and if you're paying,
I think they don't want to reach people. They're
just content.
Point.
Yeah. But now and this is a totally different conversation. But now because of the metaverse and everything like that,
geez.
now you can actually have very introverted people going out and evangelizing in a new space where they wouldn't feel comfortable physically showing up.
Could work.
So there's all these things that are happening, but put yourself in those different places so you can learn, so you can really see how things are. Because, I mean, like I said, I grew up in church. I understand as soon as I got out of church, I noticed a lot of my church friends had a lot of the secular people wrong. They had them wrong. And the same thing, it's like the same thing with one of my ex-friends saying something around the lines of like, oh, if somebody makes money, then they're evil or they have had to screw somebody over. It's just like, no, it's just wrong. It's just not even true. So
there's a lot of cliches.
Yeah, get out there, see other walks of life. If you're curious and you're like, okay, this looks bad. Obviously, like don't go. If you're a 16-year-old girl, don't go walking into alleyways in Tampa like at 3:00 in the morning.
I get idea.
You know what I mean? Like there's certain things that obviously is bad.
If you're a paraplegic, don't go swimming, man. It's not working out for you, bro.
But give an example. Like if you're an artist, go to a business meetup.
Yeah.
They have them weekly in your city, so you can go to business meetups that are ran by honestly the county. And you can have all Chamber of Commerce is one of those great places that you can go to meet other people in business, and you're going to feel uncomfortable. It's just how it is. You're going to feel uncomfortable.
It's a good thing to feel if you're learning.
Oh yeah, and like John said before, we were at his house before this. He always feels a little bit nervous. I hope you don't mind before we start the podcast. But it's like he uses that feeling to know that he's stepping into a new territory. Like we're all nervous. You don't remember the first time you went to school and how you felt, but some people do. But like. Remember those days?
Yeah, I will. You said it. You remember those days.
You remember those days?
It's all those days that you did not have those real life moments where you're nervous, scared, suffering, or in pain. Those are the times that did kind of just blend in over time. Like those memories don't stand out.
Yeah,
there's not enough.
And I was gonna say, I try to make myself. When I start in the morning, I think about death. I say it's a lot, but I think about it. It sounds dark, but it's trying to make me nervous about the truth of my existence. It is not something that's just guaranteed, man. And so with the podcast or anything important, I try to think about like why I should be nervous, why it's an opportunity and a responsibility, and you got to be really real with yourself so that you can get there, man. Because it's not just a good time, man. It's about more than you. It should be. So that's something you got to train into your brain, into your heart. That's the heart that Christ had. He was Jesus, and he was still thinking and praying for nights
and sweating blood.
Yeah, dude, excruciating, dude. I mean, think about that. That's something that I honestly brings me a tear. And I think in Hebrews it talks about Jesus crying out, with tears and prayer. And I'm just like, you get more of that. So I think about it in the morning, death, stuff like that. Be a little nervous, like Joe said, so you remember your days better. So you're really alive.
Have you guys heard of this guy named Ed Moyet? I want to make sure.
Oh, Milet?
Something. Okay.
Mike knows names. Watch out.
He's a business guy, right?
Yeah. Yes. But he's a diehard Christian. So he says, sort of the same vein, where it's like the thing that keeps him on his path is realizing that he just imagines that one day he gets to heaven, and God introduces him to the person that he could have been, right?
Wow.
So it's just like, hey, you made all these choices, you did this, you stayed, not to say this is a bad thing, but you stayed where you're at. You had a choice to do this, and this is the life that you could have had, blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to introduce you to the person that you could have been. Like, think about that.
That reminds me
that's terrifying, right? That's terrifying to think about.
The talents, the parable of the talents. Like, the guy gives guys these talents, and one guy buries it in the ground because he's like, I know you're a man that's severe, and he's going to want what he put into it. But the other guys took risks, and they did stuff with the talents. Like, they invested it. Probably some of it went wrong. You know what I mean? Probably some of it went right.
100%.
But that's what it's about. Like, you have to put the risks in. You have to put the life in. Otherwise, you're not going to get anything out of life.
Right.
Life's really short. It's not very long.
See, the cool part about that parable of the talents is the more you know God, it's like he's giving you these talents because he believes you can do something with them. And he's a graceful, merciful God too.
It's a little bit of a confidence booster.
It is, dude. He's not the God who'll give you talents and be like, yeah, I'm giving you this talent so you can lose it and then face me and I can be judging you in hell.
You suck.
Yeah. Thank God that's not the God. I mean, if he was that kind of a God, I'm pretty sure lobster and steak would taste like dust and dirt and dog crap. But it doesn't. It tastes awesome. So I believe that he's also good.
Absolutely. With a little side of butter.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, so that's what I took from this is just being able to obviously have your intentions in check, your why, and in all forms, just be able to go into the places that make you uncomfortable, right? Because, failure is a good thing, man. Yeah. Failure is awesome. Failure is one of the best things that ever happened to me. You know what I mean? Like, I thought I wanted to be a touring musician, and I saw what the artist scene was really like. And, when they ask you where you want to be in high school, like, you don't know you know what the pay is going to be to be a doctor. You know kind of what you're going to have to do, but you don't know 70% of what the work life is going to be like. And it comes with personalities. There's certain different personalities in art. The same thing in healthcare. There's totally different personalities in all these different markets. So go out there and learn. Go out there and be uncomfortable. Have fun being uncomfortable. If you can have fun being uncomfortable, you've like literally taken away, endless amount of barriers in your life.
You're an adrenaline junkie now.
Right. It's like, I want to feel like I'm about to throw up. Yeah.
Adrenaline is cranked.
All the time.
Oh, yeah. And there's some people that are
Stay
intense.
hard. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
We watched Point Break last night. And
Point Break.
Come on, Point Break, dude. Patrick Swayze.
Oh, yes.
Keanu
Great
Reeves.
movie.
Yeah.
Great movie. Yeah.
Lots
It's
of
91. I thought it was the 80s.
There's some great quotes in there.
Close. Very close.
Yeah.
Great movie. Great movie.
We need to be like what's his name?
Keanu Reeves?
No.
What's the count? He's Johnny Utah.
Oh.
And then the other dude's name is Johnny Utah. Definitely 80s.
Patrick Swayze.
Patrick Swayze. Brody,
yeah.
But we need to be like Brody, except for pursuing Christ. He's like,
Brody's a man.
look at that 10,000-foot wave. That is your fears. That is your failure. That is all that. And just be like, you know what? It's not just me riding that wave. Christ is with me, man. So like you don't have to identify in your failures in the way that the rest of the world does, man. You got salvation, bro.
And and what makes it hard when people start internalizing this after they see the podcast is, okay, well, how much failure is enough? It's just like, okay, let's draw a line here. If you're looking at risking 90% of your net worth on an investment of some sort, go ahead and don't do that.
Yeah, do not.
Do
it's
not
like
do
a
that.
get rich
Protect yourself and diversify. How do you diversify? Let's just have some fun here. How do you diversify your risk and trying things new? Okay, you try something new. Going to a Chamber of Commerce meetup. What's the worst that can happen? You might not be able to talk because everybody feels and talks very differently, but that's okay.
It's not
that's
glamorous,
okay.
but
you're
it's
not
totally
going to lose
cool.
a leg. You're not going to lose like half of your finances. Okay. Now you want say 25 to 30, and you haven't even started investing in your future yet. Okay. A cheap way to do that is with a Roth IRA. You can put in $100 a month. You know what I mean? You don't have to go invest $50,000 in cryptocurrency. You don't have to do that right now.
Heard that, bro.
Okay. Like diversify your experiences.
And also something Warren Buffett says is do something Like, don't go off and, like, do some crazy stuff or something that you don't really understand. Like, if you understand something, pay attention to that and try exploring that and putting time and effort into that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Like being like, okay, so you say this to a diehard Christian that knows nothing about Christianity, and you're like, well, Paul did.
Diehard Christian that knows nothing about
Christianity.
Christianity.
Diehard Christian that knows nothing but Christianity.
Oh.
Sorry, I think we'll review the tape. We'll see what
Actually, those two, that could work.
It could work.
I think I've seen those.
All right. So essentially, it's like doing what Paul did in 2 Corinthians and going and checking out other cultures and everything like that. It's just like, if you hear that, maybe you don't want to go to Peru and do ayahuasca. Maybe you don't want to do just that just now, but going to like a music festival or something that's a little more secular so you can dip your toe and just kind of see how people are reacting to it, get the personalities. Now you're not just judging them, and now you're not judging them. You're like, okay, parts of this were fun, parts of this were kind of toxic. I understand this now. Okay, cool. And then your why and your intention goes straight back to that. Why are you at a festival? Why are you trying new things as a Christian? Because I'm trying to understand, maybe. Because you're trying to add inspiration or be a light in certain dark tunnels.
Oh, yeah.
I just started I was talking to a girl that was very atheist. Very, very atheist.
When they're atheist.
And she came from Christianity and then became an atheist, and now she does like card readings and all this kind of stuff.
Atheists doing tarot card readings?
I don't think you can do those.
That's some.
She's a very, very interesting girl. Put it that way.
Those two.
But I entertained it for a very short while, and one of those situations where she was hitting me up, and then I think I told you about this. She like put like a profile picture up with this other guy. And I was like, hey, is this your boyfriend? That's cool. And she was like, well, he was last night. I just broke up with him. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And then I was like, all right, well, that sounds good. I was like, ha ha ha. What did you pay him for the night or something like that? Is what I said. And then she thought it was. She didn't. She actually texted me back on Snapchat, and then you could see that it was deleted. And I was like, oh great, this is cool. All right, so I must have offended her. And I just texted her. I was like, hey, that was a joke. Just want to let you know. Like, hope you're okay. She's like, no, I have really thick skin. It's fine. By the way, we're back together. And I'm thinking like, wow. Like for a second in my head, though, I was thinking like, okay, well, she used to be Christian. She used to have like her head on straight. Maybe this is going to be good for me to be in this person's life and vice versa.
Well,
so
dude,
I can kind of see what's going on. But the risk to reward, the diversification was, I'm not going and sleeping with this woman and then have a chance to have a child. That would put us in an indefinite relationship the rest of our lives. Oof. I'm not going in. Yeah, I'm not, spending all my money on this girl. I'm not trying to like throw all of my heart at this woman. Like diversify, buds.
That's the part that hurts the worst, though.
Wait. Please say that again because I've never heard that before.
The heart is the worst. Like the money and all that stuff. It sucks.
Doesn't hurt as bad.
But investing yourself into somebody and like
the heart is the purse that hurts the worst.
Dude, when you give, it doesn't matter if it's that happens quick, bro.
Yeah,
it does.
Big without you knowing it.
Big deposits, right? And then what you're having to, I mean, I've heard you guys talk about it, like, and I had a conversation with Mike last night about, you've reached certain relationship potentials that are in their 30s and they come with a lot of baggage.
Dude, Mike is a savage, bro. Like,
that's why he's being quiet right now.
You won't see him like Mike, dude. Mike is like just a total animal, bro. He's a savage.
Savage.
Yeah. If a girl, if like it's not working out with the girl, like, and he just deletes number, blocks, like it's just.
I don't do that. I just like
maybe not that hardcore.
I just like if I'm not gonna talk to this person again, I'm unfollowing them and just.
He never checks up on him again. Like he doesn't. Like he'll talk about him, but he honestly knows how to be like.
No, yeah, I've been that too. Totally been like that.
I think you protect yourself a little better that way.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because when you're making those big deposits, like you don't want to feel that way again.
Man, big deposit. I mean, I hate to talk in money formula and
well, I mean,
business,
like there's only so much of you, man. I mean, there's only so much, and then there's all that lost time too that takes you to get back into that confidence zone where you are who you are, because you got to reconcile mistakes and not stepping in that big pile of doo doo again.
Yeah.
You know, so you're always like trying to figure that out. It takes a lot of time, bandwidth. It's not easy,
right?
You know, so
hence why I'm patient. I'm like patiently waiting. You know what I mean? Like. One of our mutual friends said to me one day, I was like really infatuated with this girl, and he was just like, dude, what if she doesn't even like you? Like, what if she doesn't even like you as much as you like her? And then he said, imagine how stupid this moment's going to feel when you actually meet the one that's like willing to support you the rest of your life. Like not financially,
no.
At heart, body, mind, be able to support each other. Like how ridiculous will this day look? How upset will you be that you spent this
set your standards
much time
and not just high, just be real with them, man.
Yeah. And I guess that's my mission. My message to the guys is just that. Like, if you're an overthinker, then good luck out there.
You're screwed.
But just realize that about yourself and give yourself that grace and self-love that you need. Because I mean, look, if you hate on yourself, you don't love yourself. Whose creation are you really crapping on here? You know what I mean? So it's like one of those things. It's like,
great point, Paul.
It's so
he made you this way. You're basically calling him an idiot.
Yeah, the devil's gonna come and be like, you're not gonna fit with any. You're not good enough. Everybody's rejecting you. Whatever. Mm-hmm. You're just not good enough for anything.
No.
You know, and that's what he does. He's the accuser.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you know what? I'm gonna identify the most long-lasting, important relationship I have right now, which is that with Christ.
Mm-hmm.
If you do that, you'll probably treat the lady, when she does come into your life, the way she should be.
Yeah, and for all the business people out there, the people that are really driven, that want to do something, that are also spinning plates, let me ask you, how much time do you think would be on your hands if you were just with one person? You know what I mean? That's all I got to say.
Respect, man.
Both take time.
Both take time.
Especially if you're with the right person, though, it's a lot easier. That's way, way better. But if you choose like a girl that's not the right one to settle down with, then you're kind of probably might be better off spinning the plates. Just saying.
You've thought about this recently, huh?
Well, it's just this little balance on that whole thing. But I agree, like dating is not
fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be for some people, but I'm not one of those people. I don't think it ever.
And Mike, you said that we were talking about this yesterday. You have very specific criteria that helps you wade through a lot of things. And I hate to again put another business and capitalist mentality on this, but in marketing, they say if you want to spend the less time, the less amount of money, you have to define your target market, right? So, like, if you look at Lululemon, their target market
is no longer athletes by the looks of it.
No, absolutely not.
Not anymore.
But they were like, our person is that's. I'm just paraphrasing and kind of screwing this up, but it's somewhere on. It was this much detail. It's like our target market is the person that's this old, between like 5 years, 5 years of age. And not 5, but like 30 to 35. They'd rather sit on the couch during the week and eat popcorn watching Netflix,
Brutal,
but they're extremely driven during the day because they're homebodies. They love this, and then their favorite book is this.
Super specific.
Wow. Super specific. And Lululemon is one of the most groundbreaking and one of the richest companies in apparel right now. So it's like what you were saying yesterday was being hyper specific about women that you're dating. Can you go over that real quick?
Well, I'm just like, for example, if I use a dating app, I will be the content I put on there describing myself is going to filter out girls. Number one, like I make it very clear what I'm about, and then number two, if I talk to a girl, I ask specific questions right away to get the filter again. Like I'll ask them. If you had only one question to ask a guy before deciding to go on a date, what would it be? And I'm looking for kind of Jesus-related answers on that. Like I want to see what's the most value or what they value most out of that question. A lot of times I get the right answers on that. And then I will in turn ask them, like, how important is your relationship with Jesus? And that'll quickly weed out the girls that are not taking that seriously. They'll get freaked out by that question. Or they'll give some really obviously not real answer, and so like I can
honeypot you.
Yeah, like I can filter out 99% of girls that way.
Yeah, but in Lululemon's case, it's like they filtered out spending money on the wrong people, spending time on the wrong people, all this other stuff, but at a very massive amount, right? So it's like the same thing where, okay, if you're used to online dating and getting uncomfortable, might be you going to the bar and actually like trying to do the same sort of thing and find those Christian Italian girls.
I would say go to the library
or go to
or to Target,
or honestly, or
Target between times of 11 to 3.
Right. I would even want to go to like a coffee shop at 10 a.m. on a Saturday and see who's working. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, girl's working. She cares about what's going on. She's driven. I like business owners and artists. Like, if you can have those teams put together, I'd be really happy.
Really hard.
It's right. I think maybe I'm the unicorn that everybody's missing.
Yeah.
Hey. So, but yeah, no, I love that though. Yeah, I learned a lot from that. And after talking to you, I was like, man, my scope is way too open. Way too open.
Yeah, you're gonna waste a ton of time, and you'll potentially. I made the mistake, like you let yourself get interested in people that you like, are not where you're wanting to be anyway. So it's just, and you just waste time. You like, why are you wasting your time?
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
And then you get in the world like, I'm going to change this person to be what I want then. And it's like, well, that's a terrible idea.
That's where I was at with this last one. Yeah, that was ridiculous. Absolutely. Doing what quote unquote some people would say most women do to men.
Yeah, they try to fix them.
What is it? It's I've heard this quote of like, women get into relationships with men thinking that they're going to change, and men get into relationships with women thinking that they're going to stay the same. I was like, wow, that's incredible.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
No, that
whole bunch of memories just came back.
No, that's serious, dude.
Well, so, we're over 2 hours in.
All right.
Any closing thoughts?
Loved my time talking and learning from Paul.
Love to have you on again.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Crack me up.
I was really nervous. Actually, this is one of the things I was really nervous about, like coming on, because I'm not an evangelist.
He was born in a podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Beg to differ. You're a good faker. Yeah,
that's true.
No.
But no, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
We love
guys.
you, Paul.
Yeah.
Love you, brother.
Number 2, man.
Cool. Let's end with a little prayer then. Let's do it. Anybody want to do it?
You can do it. Lord, thank you so much for this day. Thank you that we could have this great conversation with Paul, Lord, and just give our brothers watching this hopefully some useful advice, useful thoughts, Lord, that they can grow with, that they can learn from, and Lord, that we would learn from each other. Thank you so much for the hearts of these men, and I just pray this all in your name, Jesus. Amen.